as well, so that if you have some people in your team that you want to share this with, feel free to share it. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Nadav, for joining. I saw your teammate couldn't join, but I'm happy you could.
Yes, I'm here representing.
Nice. So I've kept it very simple. So I'm going to use Workflowy to present my thoughts. So the idea of this presentation is SEO 101. So you don't need to know anything about SEO to begin with. You just need to know how users think. That's all. Everything else, we are going to give you pointers right now. So first, to begin with, like, why am I talking about SEO? Why did I choose to pick up this topic than any other topic? I think it is because of two reasons that it makes sense for me to cover SEO. So you already know my name, so I don't think there is any point of mentioning my name, but I'll still do because it's a recording. So my name is Suryansh. I'm an engineer by profession. Then I moved to co-founding my a media company where I lead everything digital. When I was at Booking, I worked on building search engines where we build the travel search for Booking.com. I think that was a key experience to make my understanding mental model better about SEO. Building a search engine made me understand how an engineer would think when they build search. And SEO is basically backtracking what an engineer thought while building that engine. So I worked at Booking to build their search engine. Then for the past 6 years, first part-time, then full-time, we have been driving organic growth on Essentially Sports using purely SEO. So last year, Essentially Sports hit around 470 million page views across 2020. Out of that, around 420 million came purely from organic SEO. We did not use any paid marketing to do that. And I think that just speaks volumes of what SEO means and what it can do to a company. Key takeaways today that I expect. I think if there is one key message that can happen by the end of this session is that you understand the value of SEO. If I'm able to drive that point, like how important SEO is for your product. And if you can start even like 1% to make it happen today, I'll feel happy. I am going to try to make that journey easier by giving you a 7-step approach to make it happen. Feel free to try this approach out. Ask me questions when you try it. I'll be happy to help you out in any actionables. So takeaway, go do SEO today, 7-step approach to make it happen. We'll get to that. Now, why is SEO important? First of all, before we get to how to do it, why is it important? I think the biggest thing is it's free. You don't have to spend a penny on it compared to, let's say, when you do a PPC campaign or branded campaigns, or let's say even if you hire 5 developers to do something that costs money, but SEO does not. uh, like product-led growth is considered something which is free, which is organic and compounds, but SEO requires much less people and can actually get you similar size of growth. So SEO is free. It costs time and energy, but it is something that you can even do passively. Then I think the second biggest thing that I really learned doing Essentially Sports on this, and just one caveat that I should mention. So this is something that I am doing on an independent basis. So I'm not using Essentially Sports data while covering this. So this is an independent SEO, and I'm using, of course, my learnings of Essentially Sports while talking about this. So I think the biggest learning that I felt last year was, so let's say if a company saw the growth that we saw, but if we were using a paid marketing campaign to make it happen. Let's say, for example, what Booking did 20 years ago. They would spend money on PPC and then they would be able to get a reservation on top of it. And to get X amount of growth, they always knew they have to spend some X minus Y amount to always make it happen. So their profit margin was always defined at scale. But when you are doing SEO and you get growth because of that, your costs are always fixed, but your growth is infinitely possible. So that dynamic is not possible via any other means. So it is free at scale. And of course, it doesn't get that reliability also because it is free at scale. That's a caveat. Uh, and the third biggest thing I think is, even if you don't completely agree that SEO is the most important things, even if you partially agree, you don't have to stop anything else. You can do SEO with a good PPC campaign. with good product led growth ideas and good partnership branding ideas as well. Okay, so it's a mix and match. SEO should be one of the bets that you place. Now, what is SEO? So the full form is search engine optimization, but in human language, what does it mean? It just means you're creating your content in a way, your website and URLs in a way that Google will understand. So I'm not saying that I will understand or someone will understand. Google's interpretation of what user will understand is what you have to crack, because it's one interpretation. Maybe there would be another search engine in the world who will decide there's another interpretation in the world. And most of the time till now, Google's interpretation is very close to what you would ideally expect. So it's quite first principle in that way, but it's very important that you think, what is Google understanding here? So sometimes it might feel, okay, it's quite obvious. It doesn't make sense what Google is doing, but you have to accept that, okay, Google is doing this. So you have to agree to it. And the objective is that Google has this demand coming in, right? So what exactly are we trying to do on SEO? People go to google.com, people type something, they expect a result which matches their intent at that moment. Google has created a multi-trillion dollar company to solving this problem. We are going to do our bit to make it happen for them. And we are going to give them information so that they can serve that user demand and maybe get some users to our website. And then maybe we can do something with them. At Essentially Sports, we sold ads. Maybe if you're running Riverside FM, you're looking to convert to a paid customer. If you're running an app company, maybe you're looking to divert those users to your app, or maybe you're just doing it for awareness of your apps or your products. It can be anything. That goal is on your end. The only bit that you have to care about on google.com is user is coming with an expectation. When that user comes to your URL, you have to fulfill that expectation first and then decide what to do with that user now that you have that user already. So in this presentation, when I was thinking about it, I could have gone with two approaches. I could have went into technical terms, what it means, etc., which I think is very useful. And the crowd on this call is someone who would understand. But that is also the reason I'm not going into this, because this is something that you will understand when you get into it. What I'm going to cover is practical tips to make it happen, like which is coming from experience, which I think you won't find on a blog or something at this moment. Before I get to that, there are a few terms that I think are important to understand for this context of presentation. So there are 3 steps for a piece. So let's say you go to google.com and you type Roger Federer. Okay. So for a piece to come here, for any URL to come here, for a rogerfederer.com to come here, for a twitter.com/rogerfederer to come here, there are 3 steps that happen. First is crawling. Google has all these machines and CPUs running to get content, which they call Spider, to get content on their machines, on their database, so that they know that you exist on the internet. You can exist on the internet, but you cannot be on google.com. There can be situations like that. Black SEO is that they don't get to Google. There are websites, new websites that never get to Google. So first, it's important that you get into Google's database. So to do that, there's a concept called crawling, where Google allocates certain budget, which is costly for them. They allocate that budget on your website. They check your URLs, and then they start polling them. They move it to the stage called indexing, where they're basically picking up all that content and storing it in a format that they would understand to rank it better. Once they have stored it in the format they understand, and there are techniques of writing your HTML in a way that Google understands it better, so that you make the journey for Google to index it easier. Once that is done, then it moves to the third stage called ranking, which is purely related to a query. So when a user does a query, Google tries to rank the best possible indexed content it has for it. This is the stage called ranking. And to get to that, you did crawling, you did indexing, and then you try to do the query in your URL and your content in a way that you get ranked for this query. Now I'm going to use these terms throughout while talking about these 7 steps: crawling, indexing, ranking. So you'll do different techniques to ensure that your crawling gets better, your indexing gets better, your ranking gets better. All 3 are important to get an actual user on your website. Now, there's another aspect that you should know when you are thinking about crawling, indexing, and ranking. When SEO started 20, 25 years ago, Google was very, very simple. You would go to google.com, you would go type something, and there would be just 10 blue links on the page. That's all you used to care about. So if you are e-commerce, you are SaaS, you are news, you are product, you are a Google place, everything was same for Google. This was just 10 URLs. Then in the journey of 20 years, Google expanded. Google saw, of course, where paid queries were coming in more and more, paid bidding was happening, where there was more money in. Google optimized those more money areas to a more curated experience. The reason was, of course, they wanted to do it better for user, but it was also because if they make it more curated, they have more control, they can charge a better premium on top of it. So Google Places is the biggest example. Yelp used to get so many reviews. Yelp, Zomato, these websites would serve reviews to Google. People would go to yelp.com to find a place. Google introduced Google Maps, Google introduced Google Places. They collected all that information and then started competing Google Maps with Google Places. And Google News is another product. Google product reviews. So if you're Amazon.com, if you are a D2C brand running e-commerce product reviews matter, because if you go search, let's say, I want to buy a piano, you expect Google to surface those fancy carousels which tell me exact piano that I can just click and buy in a single click. So depending on the product that you're building, so the experience that I have is around Google News, top stories and search. But let's say if you're running an e-commerce place, if you're running a restaurant, the other assets might make a difference. And the caveat that I would highlight is fundamentals remain the same everywhere. So the 7 steps that I'm going to talk about won't change. But depending on the asset that you're targeting, there would be 8th, 9th, 10th steps that you can optimize once you get to that stage. There's a very important infographic to see these SERP results. I am going to add this on the chat so that you can look at it. It talks about all these SERPs. Actually, I can just share this link on the chat so that you can follow. Now, coming to the 7 steps that I've been talking about. These are the 7 steps that will ensure that you actually get a visitor on your website. I'm not going to say when it is going to happen. The only thing I can guarantee is if you follow these 7 steps, it will happen. I cannot guarantee when. So the first step is getting a good domain. Whatever you are starting, you could be starting a new website, new product idea. You could already have a product. Domain name does make a difference. There is no out from that. If you go talk to a Google executive, they will say, no, Google domain name doesn't make a difference. What you do with it makes a difference. No, it does make a difference. If you are targeting, let's say if you're targeting a query around, let's say, again, I'll take an example, Roger Federer. I have Roger Federer in my URL. Nobody is going to stop me from ranking. Nothing can stop me from ranking. If I'm creating a podcasting company, someone is searching for podcast in their query. If I have podcast in my URL, nobody can stop me from getting there. It will always be better than any other domain. Now, I'm not going to say go change your brand because of this, but it's important that when you took that choice of the brand name, there is a choice that you already made. And one practical tip to solve this could be keep your brand, create sub brands which are targeting around SEO names. Create sub brands and then link it with your core brand. You can always do that. Of course, there are advantages of doing the brand name things because let's say when you do your PR, there would be more branded searches that would be happening. That would automatically create an authority for your brand name for it to come up. That is definitely there. But if you can find a way to combine this together, it would be really, really good. So to take an example, where if let's say you're starting today and you're looking for a good domain name, okay, and you have not decided a brand name for your product, what I would suggest you to do is go to moz.com, go to ahref.com. There are 10 other tools. All the tools are very, very similar. I won't say this tool will change the world for you. All the tools are very, very similar. The market has matured so much. All the features have been copied in each other tools. So use the tool that you're comfortable with. use the tool that someone in your team is comfortable with. It will mostly do the job. Now think holistically, what is the domain that you're targeting? Okay. Now start typing certain keywords around it and see what is the highest volumes around those keywords, which keyword is getting highest volume. So let's say there's a very interesting example that I heard 4.5 years ago. So I had a friend who used to run e-commerce company, and they were selling phone covers. So uh, coming from India, they were India based. Cover is the word that we use generally for it. So on their pages, they were using iPhone covers everywhere, and they were not ranking as much. Then they went into these tools and they saw that, okay, the search is for iPhone cases. The difference between iPhone case and iPhone cover was 10x in search volumes. So they did not change their product. They did not change anything. Their whole funnel was the same. The only thing that they changed was they changed the wordings from covers to cases everywhere. They were ranking on third position in less than a week on that search volume. This is how much of a difference it can make if you put it in the right direction. So imagine if you had created a website called iPhonecases.com. You would be the biggest iPhone case e-commerce seller in the world right now. I can guarantee you that. And to give you an example, when I was thinking about this some time ago, I bought this domain, Ghana.fm. So FM is something that is used for music industry, and I was shocked to see that Ghana.fm is available. So I bought it. It was quite expensive, but I bought it. I'm hoping someday Ghana.com. So for people who are not from India on this call, Ghana is the English word for Hindi word for music. And there's a company called Ghana, which is very big, which is like Apple Music in India. I'm hoping for the day someday they will come knocking my door. Okay, give us Ghana.fm. And that's how useful it is to have a domain name like this. And still, web is, I cannot even count how many years old, but there are still domains available like this. If I can get a Ghana.fm, I'm sure there are domains available in the world with good domain names that you can buy. Now, the second best option, which I would say actually is the better option to do if you can figure it out, is getting a domain that was already ranked. That was a domain that used to exist on Google, but then let's say the people running that website stopped using it or is just alive but doing nothing with it. Find those domains for your industry and just buy them. They don't need to be getting traffic. If a domain is indexed on Google 10 years ago compared to a website that you're buying today and you're putting it on Google, the domain 10 years ago would take 10x lesser time than whatever you're going to do today. So what this exercise does is any bet that you're going to put with these 7 steps, if it was going to take 1.5 years, you are going to bring it down to less than 3 months by just finding a domain. And it is not easy. It is not easy finding this, but it is worth the effort. Certain websites that I already know do this. One is Flippa, where you buy running businesses, not just domains. And what you can think of is, let's say if there is a website called tattoomags.com. There was a website I saw that who was selling on Flippa. What they were doing was they were just selling content. But let's say if you were someone who was creating tattoos, you could buy that domain, change the business model, because now you're not selling content. So getting 50,000 users on content is not a big deal. But if you're creating tattoos, if there's a transaction involved, 50,000 users hold a lot of value. So you can use a running domain and just pivot it to your business. You can go to GoDaddy resells, where people have domain names already, which they want to sell. And there are ways to research to find if their domain was already indexed. One of the ways, there's a free tool, moz.com/free SEO tools. You go to that. I'll take an example here. So go to this tool, type any domain name that you want to check. Then it will show you 4 key terms: domain authority, linking root domains, ranking keywords, and spam score. So First of all, I'm going to clear the air on domain authority. Domain authority is a term that everybody uses in the SEO industry. And there's a conception that this is made by Google. It is not. Domain authority is a notation created by SEO softwares. This one is created by Moz to create a metric for people like us to understand what is the value of this domain. And this is a localized value, so it depends on the industry you are in. So essentially sports.com is not being compared with a Wikipedia. This score is being calculated with an ESPN or a CBS Sport. It is calculated based on these three metrics: linking root domains, ranking keywords, and spam score. Linking root domains, I'll get to it what it means in the next point. Ranking keywords is the keywords that you're just ranking on more and more. How many essentially sports.com URLs are ranking on this keyword? And spam score is something that is a bit difficult to understand. It's not talked about as often. So spam score is if people are talking about you on the internet, if people are mentioning essentially sports.com or Ghana.fm on the internet, are they credible? Are they spammy or are they credible? So if bad websites are referring to you, even though that is something not in your control, your spam score gets very bad. That means you are a bad website. So something that I've seen happen a lot compared to India versus US website, because in India, there's a lot of gray hat techniques used in SEO. Most of the websites referring you from Indian ecosystem or let's say Asian ecosystems are spammy, even though you did not do to make it happen. But because the ecosystem is spammy, you get links which are spammy. That is a caveat that you have to keep in mind and be wary of. Coming back to the point of domain, if you are going to GoDaddy, if you're going to Flippa, you want to decide, is this a domain that I should be buying? Go to this free tool, moz.com/free SEO tools, check the DA, check the ranking keywords, and of course, go do a Google search of that domain and see what comes up. Once you have decided the approach that you are going to go for in this good domain, couple of things you should keep in mind, whatever approach you go ahead with. There are so many TLDs that have been created in the past years. There's .fm, there's .in, there are localized .it, etc., etc. .com still trumps everything. So if you can get a .com domain, it is always better than any other domain that you can get. But if you cannot, you can of course go ahead. Like we bought a domain called advantagesdisadvantages.co because the keywords in the URL were amazing. If I have advantages in the URL, I can go do anything with it. So we still went ahead, even though it was .co. But ensure the premium that you are paying to buy that domain, it makes a difference. .com does make a difference. It does deserve a premium. Another gray area that happens on the internet a lot, and SEO executives, I don't know why they like Google representative, why don't they call spade a spade? So if you go ask a Google executive right now, does subdomain or a domain makes a difference? Let's say if I have Ghana.com and I go make music.ghana.com, will music.ghana.com be a good approach to do? It won't be. When you are building a subdomain, you are starting from scratch. Subdomain is treated as good as a new domain by Google, even if you are using the highest authoritative domain. So let's say you are running, I'm going to take Riverside example. If you are running riverside.fm, if you want to create a blog, don't create blog.riverside.fm. Create riverside.fm/blog/your content URLs. Always keep it in subpath. It won't seem natural, maybe. In blog, it seems natural, but in other things, it might not seem natural. You might want to separate it out from your website. You might want to have it its own standing. And if there are product reasons or business reasons to do that, go ahead. But do remember that you're going to be disadvantaged from an SEO perspective on this. Moving to the second point, once you have bought a good domain, okay, you have bought a good domain, you're totally excited. Okay, I want to get that first visitor on Google Analytics on this website where the referral is Google organic. I want to see it tomorrow. But you wait tomorrow, it doesn't happen. You wait 2 days, it doesn't happen. You wait 1 month, it doesn't happen. 9 out of 10 times I've seen a lot of new people make this mistake. They have not really asked Google to do that to them. So you need to go to Google Search Console, register your domain there. That, okay, I've created this new domain. I am running this domain. Please go and index this. The term that I've used before. Please ask Google, please go crawl this and then index this content. And if once that is done, then maybe Google will rank it as well. But first you have to ensure that crawling and indexing is happening. And that is something that is in your hand. You can actually ask Google to do this and they will do it. They won't do it in the next 30 seconds because you are a new website, but they will do it in the next 24 hours. A new website gets indexed in, if I publish a new piece right now, I get indexed in less than 30 seconds because Google has figured out that, okay, this is worth spending my energy on and they are spending this crawl budget. But for a new website or website that you're reviving, the crawling and indexing will be slower, but it will happen once you request it. And in your use case, it is fine. In most of the use case, when you're starting, it would be fine because the time frame that you're looking at is 5 years, 10 years, and not that a news piece that will go away, their value will go away in the next 30 minutes. So it's just important to go do a crawling and indexing. Another mistake that happens a lot of time is there is no robots.txt. Robots.txt is like a protocol telling a bot how to crawl this website and what not to crawl in this website. So let's say if you have certain URLs which are behind a login screen, Google cannot crawl it because it doesn't have URL ID password. So you have to differentiate it out in your robots.txt that, okay, this is the public domain URLs, which brings me to another point. If you want your content to be indexed and there are certain UGC contexts which are happening behind a user profile, think of creating a public view version of it as well. Facebook does it, LinkedIn does it, everybody does it. They create this free link. Most of the times you see it, you feel like maybe they're creating it for the free users, that, okay, maybe users would want to see it and they don't want to log in before seeing that. That is the case, yes. But I believe the majority reason of that is they want that content to be ranked on Google. And that will only happen if they have some version of the content available, even on a non-logged in experience. And the moment you buy this domain, don't delay this search console step because each day matters. Age of indexability defines how fast you get indexed, how much budget that you get. So even if, let's say, you bought a domain today and you are building your product and your website is going to take 6 months to launch, just create a temporary page create a page that work in progress, etc. Get it live, get it indexed, then change the content later, but at least get it in the pipeline. Once you have ensured that your domain is indexed, which you can check on Google Search Console and which you can also check by searching your domain name exactly on google.com. Then third step, which I have put very high on the radar, a lot of SEOs put lower in the radar because this is tough to do if you're not coming from a technical background. But knowing the crowd of this call, I think this is an edge we have compared to any other SEO websites in the world if you're using SEO as a technique, because tech doesn't come tough to us. Tech around a domain like this doesn't come tough to us. So what we should do is we should ensure that we do the best work here on this. So first, get this software, Screaming Frog. I love this software. It's a desktop application. There is a free version, there is a licensed version, both. Do it. This is amazing. What it does is it lets you replicate what Google does to your website. You just give it your domain name here and you start the spider. It will start hitting all the URLs that you have on your website. And it will start showing you all the issues that is possible. If your URL is HTTPS, if it is blocked by robots, if you have enough content, if you are using all the SEO practices, this tool is highly, highly recommended, way more than anything else. Go download this tool today, put your domain name here and see what is happening, how a bot is actually treating your domain name. Then second thing, which you should definitely do, always have an AMP version of your website. There's this news going on that AMP is going away. Maybe it is going away, but adding AMP is super easy to do. It's worth doing it. Go do it today. Third, there's this new thing going on, Core Web Vitals, which front-end engineers would already know. It's a way to measure if the website is fast. It's one of the ways to measure. Google is really pushing this. They are going to launch an update next month, which is going to prioritize this. So ensure that your website is following those standards. Fourth, ensure that all the URLs that you have in your website, even if those are automated URLs, because for Google, it doesn't matter this URL was created automated or you created this URL. Any URL that is on your website and that you allowed robots.txt to rank should have these parameters on them. So first, it should be HTTPS. It should have a meta title. It should have a meta description. It should have open graph tags. So these are tags which social media use. So when Facebook creates a preview, they are using open graph tags. Language of the content, and do put headings H1, H2. And last but not the least important thing, your content, anything that you have there should be unique, should not be duplicate. You can use tools like copyleaks.com to ensure that your content is not the same. And it applies to even an e-commerce page. You should have different content. There's a reason when people create affiliate platforms on top of Amazon and just pull that content up, they don't rank as easily. It partially it's because of their domain, they are not Amazon, but it's also because their content is not unique. Someone else had already created that e-commerce page and put it live. Once you have done all of this, again go to Search Console, check if it is being indexed, check if it is reachable. My screaming frog. Now coming to the dirty bits, especially when you're starting, you need to use the internet equivalent of branding. The internet equivalent of branding is good people talking about you is considered good by everyone. So for Google to consider you important, for any website to be important, it uses something that we use in our friend circle as well. If someone I trust is recommending me someone, I would go ahead with that recommendation. So the same way, when a website that Google trust is linking to this new website, Google will give a chance to this new website because they can see that, okay, someone I trust is following this. So first thing is ensuring that people are talking about you. So people talking about you, there are few hacks to do this, especially when you're starting. One of the hack is that there is this web 2.0 link ecosystem, right? So let's say you can go to a forum, you can go create your LinkedIn page, you can go create your Facebook page, you can go create your all these user generated content website, Quora.com, etc., etc. These are very credible websites to Google, but they are UGC. You can go submit your link there. So if I want to launch Ghana.fm, I launch a music product there. I go to Quora, I go answer that, okay, I'm using this, I have this website. What this does is now your Ghana.fm is in the HTML of Quora, which is very credible. So Google will start crawling this, use that as a signal. And this brings to this point of linking root domains. Linking root domains are domains on the internet linking to any URL of your website, any URL of your website. Okay, so just a second. Yeah, so once you have, so the reason I'm mentioning this particularly is I think this is the easiest thing to do. You can just go to Fiverr, hire someone for a few dollars, ask them to do this work for you. Then second thing is, of course, doing a PR. If like Riverside FM, they recently raised funding, or Akshay and Anurag here, they have Unlu, they raised funding, so they had links coming on the internet. People were mentioning these websites. So if a TechCrunch is mentioning your website, if a Your Story is mentioning your website, you are already getting some crawl budget assigned, some backlink authority assigned to your domain. Third way to do it is, and you would be surprised to know how big this industry is, guest blogging. People just pay $1 to get their hyperlink on a high domain authority website. People have come to essentially sports.com just asking us to put their dollar, and the budgets that they have for this is insane. So this is something that actually happens. The objective of doing this whole exercise is a term called link juice. You're passing authority from one person to another. This allows you to get visibility. So it's dirty work. It doesn't feel a big deal, but it actually gets you result. The domain authority for essentially sports from 5 to 38 purely happened because using these things. We don't even do PR, so I wouldn't even count that. Just using these, we went from 5 to 35 almost. Now, coming to your product thinking, you're ultimately solving a user need. When you're solving that, yes, Anurag,
So I was wondering if you've ever spent on Google Ads for ES.
not even $1.
Okay, and can you possibly tell us the implication of running ads? Does it add value? Does it accelerate anything ever?
The Now that I have so much experience in this industry, one looking back, one learning I have from this is for Google to rank you better, it needs to see your URLs from its eyes, from its user's eyes, from Google's user's eyes. So what Google Ads does is, of course, it fulfills your business objective to get a transaction, but it also gives you real user data coming from Google. And it gives Google real user data, which for the users which came via Google, which can actually help you get on top. That is definitely possible. And it can be one of the ways to accelerate things in the beginning.
Right. So basically, yeah. So I'm not looking at like conversions. Like I don't care if I'm getting a conversion from Google Ads, but uh, I mean, I was specifically trying to understand if I made a website today and I
Mm,
did Google Ads.
mm,
Um, your 7-step approach may, if I add this one more step,
mm.
will it accelerate things in the long run? And does Google and how does running Google Ad Mob
Hmm.
or AdSense for that matter
Hmm.
on your website affect your ranking?
Okay, so you have asked two questions here. First is the impact of
Yeah.
PPC. So
Yes.
PPC, if you are getting clicks, there can be many reasons, many advantages. One of the advantages that I can clearly think of and I'm very sure of is if, let's say, if I start a new website today, it would be impossible to get, let's say, 1,000 users tomorrow on my website via Google, okay, using SEO. But if I'm using Google Ads, I'm getting those 1,000 users via Google tomorrow. What this allows me to do is Google is tracking all these on-site metrics. And if they get to the website via even the ad approach, they got real user data, which I think will accelerate the process. If you are doing very good on on-site metrics, if you are, let's say, exceptional on on-site metrics, if your industry is not very good in Core Web Vitals and you have amazing Core Web Vitals, or let's say your industry session time is 5 minutes on an URL, but you are getting 8 minutes. So it will definitely accelerate the process. Coming to the second bit, this is a gray area. I can choose to run AdSense on my website, or I can choose to run Facebook ad network or other ad networks. If I run Google ads, Google gets money. So it gets a cut, right? Uh, I cannot say for sure, but my gut and my experience is that Google does give a bias. They wouldn't say about it, but it does create a bias because essentially sports got exceptional results, which was not common in the industry. And one of the big key things we did was we did not go to any other ad network. All the industry were using aggregated ad networks. So it can make a difference, I think.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Akshay has a couple of questions. I think I'll take it in the end. The uh, Now coming back to keyword research. So find high volume intent keywords for you. So I was talking to Nader a few days ago about his podcasting platform. And one of the things that came into my mind is probably people are looking for podcasting setup, like how to set up podcasting. That is a high volume intent keyword for the target market. So go to Moz, go to HREF, check the exact way people are typing and create a keyword bank. Then we'll get to the stage of start building URLs, but create this keyword bank with you. And also create level of keywords. So I'll take an example that I am quite familiar with. Federer versus Federer net worth versus Federer net worth 2021. This is in the order of difficulty. What is difficulty? Difficulty is how difficult would it be to rank higher compared to your competitors on this. So there is a keyword difficulty aspect. How is keyword difficulty defined? It is defined on search volume, how much search volume is there, Secondly, it is defined on the competitors, the URLs that are ranking on this search volume keyword. How difficult are they to derank? So let me take an example. When you type Federer, everybody is using Federer in their title, subtitle, URL, etc. because Roger Federer is what everybody is talking about. But when you start thinking about Federer net worth, of course, a lot of people are thinking about this. A lot of websites are thinking about this. But the number of URLs created every day would be much lesser for Federer net worth than Federer today. Because in general of the intent, this is a more narrowed intent than this. This is a broader intent. The broader the intent, the more people are serving for it. So you need to narrow down on your intent. Now, Federer Network 2021, there would be lesser people writing on it. And this is a more precise intent. So if you are starting new, start with the lowest possible intent and then cover a higher intent, because it would be easier to rank here than here. In SEO terminology, this would be called a long tail keyword. So start with the long tail and then get to a head keyword. This will make your journey very, very easy. And you can use the same URLs to optimize this. You don't need to build that URL authority again. Now start building actual URLs on your website. The more I like to see each URL as a lottery ticket. The more URLs you have in your website, the more quality URLs you have in your website, the more intents that you can target, the more queries you can target. So there's always a benefit of creating URLs. Like I personally advise everybody starting a product company, have a blog, because what blog does is it allows you to easily target more number of URLs. So assign a budget, create in-house content or outsource this content, but keep a budget to have content, because what content does is it allows you to create unique pages with unique content, serving a lot of queries, do that. Second approach could be faceted URLs. In search engine terms, we use this thing called facets, which is filters in a way. So a booking.com creates a page, budget hotels in Amsterdam for June. It always creates this page. Now it is not putting a content writer there and creating that page. What it is using is it's automatically creating these URLs based on combination of different filters. And how they are ensuring unique content. They are ensuring it by, first of all, because the list of hotels will be different. And secondly, they generally put 50 to 100 unique words there by putting a content team, or let's say creating an automatic description of that. So faceted URLs is the easiest automated hack that we engineers can use. This is something not a lot of people who understand SEO do, because this is a very niche knowledge. If you use this, it has definite advantage. One of the people that I really, really follow and like, Peter Levels, has this website Nomad List. He has documented his approach of doing this. I would highly recommend to follow that. Booking.com, Amazon, all these big e-commerce players have been doing this for ages. There's a reason they follow this category tree, hierarchy tree, and so many URLs. This allows you to rank for more queries. And this also helps in your PPC, because you can target a better keyword on your PPC. Even in PPC, just because you're spending money, that doesn't mean you will rank at the highest. You also have to optimize your conversion. Click-through. That click-through only happens when the title is something that is actually targeting users' query. Best way would be you combine these approaches together, create a lot of automated URLs, and then let's say put a content writer and write 50 unique words on all those URLs, and rest of the content is unique using an automated way. One more important thing when you start doing something automatic at scale or just creating in-house content, think of your website tree or a category tree. Your website is always in terms of a tree. So there is the root domain, then there are subpaths. So let's say Ghana.fm/blog becomes one node of the tree. Ghana.fm/ top hits becomes another subhit. And in that subhit, you can, let's say, top hits /R&D/disco/pop, all of that becomes subtree. So whenever someone is crawling you, they follow this tree structure. And the more clear your tree structure is, the more intuitive the tree structure is, the better it is. Now coming to on-page user experience, the last step. Now what you have done is you have bought a good domain, you have ensured it is indexed, you have ensured the tech of the domain is amazing, you have ensured that good people are talking about your domain, enough people on the internet are talking about your domain. You have already thought of, this is my user's intent, I'm going to serve their intent this way. You have also built the URL serving that intent. Now that piece indexed, your piece was there, they typed Roger Federer net worth, your piece came, you put a good meta title, you got a good CTR. So 100 people saw that link, 10 out of them clicked. 10% is a very good CTR. 10 out of them clicked, but 95% of them bounced immediately. But what bounce means is they came to your URL, they spent few seconds, few minutes there, but they did not click anything else. If I'm a Google bot, if I'm a Google algo, what I would think is, okay, I served the wrong result on the top because the user did not spend as much time there. So bounce matters. You have to create the content, your interface in a way that users just doesn't go away from your website or goes away as late as possible. Where this as late as possible will be interpreted as whatever need that user had on the website was already fulfilled. This as late as possible is interpreted in form of session duration. So what the algorithm does is it ranks you on 7th position, let's say on a keyword. Because you did all of this, you were able to get on the first page. Because if you are on the second page, nobody is coming to you anyway. You're dead for Google. So you used a low authority, low difficulty keyword. So let's say you might be ranking on 5th position here and you might be ranking on 3rd page here. This will allow you to rank higher with time so that you start moving up here as well. So first you rank on something easy, get on the first page. Let's say you get on the 8th position. Then you create an amazing user experience, amazing content, amazing users need. Content is not just written content. It could be video. It could be putting the product that you're selling right in front so that they spend time on it. You did all of that and you were on 7th position. Then these metrics, let's say, are amazing for you. People came to your website, they just don't go away. Then Google will feel that, okay, this is amazing. They are serving the need. So this position from 7th will rise to 3, 2, 1, and then you will stay there. Once you stay there long enough, you will start ranking higher for difficult keywords as well. You'll start moving up here as well with time. So you do everything and then product comes in, you ensure that the user experience is the best, users need is served, and you go up. Once that is all done, bonus step, you wait 1 year. Just kidding. Like you wait long enough that these things can kick in. This feedback loop is not easy. It takes time, but it does show results. This concludes the 7 steps. To wrap it up, I would just say consistency. Consistency matters a lot. Doing things that regularly matters a lot. Doing all these 7 steps regularly matters a lot. Quality. There are ways to define quality. These metrics define quality. Intent defines quality, and usability. If you keep these things in mind and if you follow these steps consistently, I am quite positive that you will get an organic user soon. Thank you. That's all. Questions?
I had one question. So how does writing a lot of content help? Like for example, EOS does hundreds of articles every day. So for like if I'm targeting a certain keywords, having a lot of URLs and a lot of content across different keywords, does that help me rank well on that particular keyword?
Okay. So there's a concept called authority in SEO. And this authority is becoming more and more precise as we go. So there is a website authority that I talked about explicitly a lot. And there's a term called topical authority. So what Google does is whenever you write any content or any e-commerce page, anything, any URL, it plays a role to create a topical authority for you. Okay. So let's say I'm trying to create topical authority for tennis. Now, let's say when I write a new piece on tennis and it targets a new keyword or something, a keyword that I already I have targeted before, but my previous content is not relevant anymore. What quantity does, ensuring that you're following at least a bare minimum quality. There should be certain quality standards always. what quantity does is it gives you multiple tries to get to that, which is always good. There's a reason we do so many pieces more than anyone else, because it gives us multiple attempts to rank on something. And because so many pieces get indexed, it adds to our topical authority.
But I do guess it depends the context of the website, right? Because you're obviously a news website. I think for example in Riverside's case, I think it's maybe better to have like 100 the best written articles instead of like 1,000 mediocre articles. Of course, it should not be a trade-off, but I think it really depends the context.
Yes, and it depends on the context of the user, because the user coming to your website and the topics that you're targeting, they expect a certain depth in your content, because their requirement, their need is much more deep. So that's why in your case, more number of words will make a difference, because they're coming with a much more detailed need.
So I think to give you a concrete example, let's take this Riverside example. So we talked about podcast setup. So does writing a piece on what's the best podcast setup, one piece which is like the best in the world, does that take priority over, say, writing 20 pieces on reviewing what kind of, like every kind of podcast mic is there? You write a page on, okay, top 10 podcast mic, top 10 webcam, review 1, review 2, review 2, 3. Which one would you prioritize amongst the two?
Yeah. So I'll use multiple variables for this. Okay. So let's say if you're picking, there would be a head keyword here, right? So in this case, there were federal, or let's say there would be the highest search volume keyword, best podcast, something like that. There would be the highest volume keyword. So on that highest volume keyword, there would be the keyword difficulty would be highest. And to do that, what you'll need to do is only one, like the second URL won't help the first URL to rank higher. You need to ensure that URL is the best URL possible for that query. So for that head keyword, you will need to ensure that you have one base article, which is the best in the world, so that you can rank higher. But if you have the budget, I believe if you use these easy keywords, these long, easy keywords, and you write just quantity, where quality wouldn't make as big a difference because the competition is lesser, you can use a lot of quantity to get ranked higher. Because what you can do is you can create unique URLs, you can create unique titles to rank higher there, get traffic, and then internally link to your head page, which is a very qualitative, very long page where you are serving the exact need.
Okay. So step one is create the good page and then use the other pages to link and improve the main page. Okay.
Yeah. If I was doing it, I would do it like this. Any questions? Otherwise, Akshay has questions on text. I can move to that. Okay. So Akshay has a question here. Elaborate a bit on buying .com, .in, .xyz, etc. How does that make a difference? Okay. So if you are making a global product, .com is the best thing. Everything else is second best. Everything else is second best. If you are only targeting India, let's say, and you're talking about .in is considered localized domain. So it will definitely, maybe it will come at par with .com. But by taking .in, you have positioned yourselves to always be Indian. You will never get ranked on US prominently. .xyz is just easy to get. You can do exceptional work and rank higher because you got a good keyword in your domain, etc. So that could be one reason of buying .xyz. But you will always be on back foot because .xyz is not just considered as authoritative on the industry. Does that answer your question, Akshay? Okay. Now, how to approach guest blogging? There are various ways. You can hire freelancers who have ecosystem on guest blogging. You can go on Fiverr and get guest blogging, or the best way, the white hat way to do it would be find the influencers of your industry, fulfill their need, create some content fulfilling their need. So let's say if I was doing it for essentially sports, what I could do is I have, let's say, interest data. Let's say we get a lot of net worth pieces, right? So I could write a qualitative graphic piece talking that, okay, people search in these sports, people care more about money. And in this sport, people care more about affairs. It's a try could create some sort of a analytical piece and ask our industry to talk about it. There they would have an incentive to talk because this is unique content and they can write something on top of this. But the black hat way is you pay people money, you just reach out to them, they do it. White hat way is you create something as interesting for them, which they wouldn't find on the internet, and you would compel them to just talk about it. Any insights on how to create multiple pages through tech? There are quite a few insights. I don't think we have time enough to complete it here. I can send blogs around it. But one big thing I would say is find patterns. So let's say if you are a weather app, people search for weather in May, weather in June, weather in July, weather in August. That's a pattern. You just create weather in X automatic keywords. Think that answers all the question. And then there's GPT-3 on the chat. I have the key, by the way, if someone wants to experiment with me, it would be fun. GPT-3 can be one way of solving this in-house content. Okay, so Rajan has a question. What if we are a single page website, we don't have subpages? How do we rank it? My first answer would be, why do you don't have subpages? Go create subpages. Don't use React single page websites. They don't rank very well. Don't use that. JS, Google doesn't understand JS. They keep saying they do, but they don't. Don't use JS. Always do server rendering, server side rendering. But if you really want to target single page, then just focus on creating the best page ever on the internet for that query.
Got it. Screen. Okay. Any other questions?
I think we are good. It was a great session. A lot of insights. I think I'll definitely have a lot of follow-up also once we start to implement on these. Otherwise, I think it was a great session. If anyone else wants to applaud on this, please feel free to.
Yes, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Suryansh. I'm pretty sure Akshay has follow-up questions. They'll be like it'll be coming from my end too. I mean, I'll be asking Akshay, and Akshay will probably be asking you. So you'll have more follow-up questions.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it was a great session. I think we should do this more often. If you have like updates or a newsletter that we can, sign up to, that would be great.
It's going to
or
take
a Patreon link.
I don't know what it's going to take me to write things, but I love the feedback. And I would say if someone can volunteer to do the next session, I think that's the best thing you can do for the ecosystem, for some other topic, anything. I think that would be really, really cool.
Great.
Cool. I think